Hello, Mike Kako. So, as you know, my name is Ines Kailo here. I am the administrator for the Maui Emergency Management Agency. I took on this role January 1st of 2024. After the wildfires, I'll be co-presenting with one of my leaders from MEMA. And so I want to be able to get through my space and go forward Chris on time, because there's also some very important things to share. So I'm going to talk about our wildfire risk reduction program for the County of Maui. Our first project was in May of 2025, which is the Ukumehame project. I'll be speaking about that a little bit more in detail a little bit later. But the conversation about a wildfire risk reduction program for the County of Maui started probably a year earlier. When I took over the agency, as you can imagine, my community screamed for something immediate, something impactful, something that was going to protect them. And what happened in that moment under my wonderful mayor is that the conversations about doing something was on his mind. It was also on my mind. I also was the incident commander for the 2018 wildfire in Hurricane Lane, and did lose the amount of structures that was mentioned earlier, and have a special place in my heart for Lahaina and the County of Maui. And so I was also with my mayor wanting to do something great, something impactful, something sustainable for my community. And as that conversation went around the room to the various departments, we never really found a home. It took some time, because the County of Maui does not have a land management function. Though departments have certain resources to do what we're proposing to do, what is necessary to do, they didn't really find its home very early. And so it took us some time to have conversations and look at funding and looking at resources, looking at union contracts as well, and make sure that we could move some kind of program. And so it fell into MEMA. And MEMA is a coordinating body with the hazard mitigation program. And therefore it's like, okay, we can coordinate the efforts moving forward. We'll require all of our participation from other departments, and that is our wheelhouse to bring to pass or forward the power of county government in coordination. And that's what we did, and it was assigned to MEMA, and we have the wildfire risk program. We're the lead coordinating body. We participate with the Maui Fire Department, we participate with the Public Works, Environmental Management, Human Concerns, and the Police Department is primary partners. We also work with DOFA, Maui Wildfire Coordinating Group, to really do good work in this wildfire mitigation group. It is not a MEMA only thing, it is a County of Maui thing. What I wanted to say before I go on the purpose is, luckily we were also approved 3 new positions in the hazard mitigation, to support the hazard mitigation program. So wildfire risk reduction is a sub-program to hazard mitigation. We're able to turn our section into 4. We have a hazard mitigation section chief, wildfire specialist, flood specialist, as well as a grant specialist coming in FY27. A lot of the solutions that are offered today and yesterday require resources. It requires people to continue these partnerships and continue these relationships and make sure that tasks get done and work gets completed. And to give it its due diligence, its due commitment, you need people. And our mayor, as well as our county council and our community, support the work of mitigation for the County of Maui, and we're going to make tremendous progress in FY27. So, the purpose of the program is to ensure that Lahaina never happens again. And there's elements to what that means. It includes hazardous fuels removal, it includes vegetation management, emission management, and then just good stewardship. I'll talk some more about that in detail, but that's the purpose of what we're trying to achieve here. The background is everybody's been talking about the past day that, the plantation era has left. And what remains is fallow lands, unmanaged, with invasive grasses that are highly flammable, that reproduce stronger after a good rain. And so that's what we're having to deal with. I grew up in the plantation era. I grew up where cane fires were right next to homes, and there were always resources to address it, and it wasn't a concern with wildfire. I think that's part of what happened in Lahaina as well. I think that our community grew up, an older community, used to wildfire and used to the idea that the wildfire is going to go away. The plantation always takes care of it. As a firefighter, I always depended on it, but that has changed. And so the perspective moving forward is also needs to change, and trying to do our best to match that or see that correctly. As was mentioned earlier, there is an unsheltered population that is growing, especially in Maui County, which increases the emission that happen through Maui County, these encampments. Some of them are in extreme wildfire risk areas, drought areas next to critical infrastructure. And having to move these encampments or relocate these encampments to protect the collective communities is something that we engage in regularly. And it's a challenging thing to be able to balance. And I'll talk about those things a little bit here as well. Operational perspective is basically to protect lives and protect critical infrastructure. That's the operational perspective for the program. Seems pretty easy, an easy concept to grasp, but when you actually apply it, it's not that easy. When you start, what comes to my mind is the cultural site protection. There's a lot of cultural sites, very sensitive cultural sites that limit what we can do and limit what we should do. It's going to be in opposition to what we can do to protect the community based on the cultural sites and the necessary protection for it, as well as with the unsheltered population and the homeless advocates. And we talk about protecting lives. The question that you will be presented with is, well, whose lives are we talking about? And are we talking about everybody's lives? Are we talking about the housed lives, the unsheltered lives, the homeless? What are we talking about? Are you including us in that conversation? And our answer is, hell yeah, we're including you in that conversation. And so that comes at a very challenging pathway to find a resolution to moving encampments that may threaten in high-risk areas, wildfire spread into the residential areas, it becomes challenging, but long-term solutions are underway. We have a new director of human concerns, and conversations are going in the right direction. Before we started the wildfire program, before we started really looking at any kind of property in our county, we wanted to establish some risk criteria. All the risk criteria is pretty similar to all the things that we talk about in wildfire firefighting. And we wanted to be objective. And it's really interesting because if we didn't establish this criteria, this objective way to look at risk, man, all of the conversations we have about prioritizing various works, I can tell you right now, would be super, super challenging. And so it was important that we did this at the very beginning. We were able to assess 900 county parcels. We established 10 extreme risk parcels. Those parcels are county-owned. 1,100 acres is what those top parcels represent. I just wanted to give you a number. I used it in front of county council. We looked at the vegetation management or mechanical removal. We just used that as some measure for us to kind of look at what's in front of us. And when we did the Ukumehame project, we had 20-foot opiuma trees, and the cost of mechanical removal was $20,000 an acre. And then when you look at grass, we're just removing mechanical removal for grass, and grazing kind of comes in the range of $3,000 per acre. And so you start looking at 1,100 acres in our top 10 parcels out of over 1,000 parcels. You go into this astronomical number that we don't have the resources to address. And so that those first top 10 parcels was 3.3 million at its very lowest cost, which is not going to be the exact cost, but it gives us a number to kind of have a conversation about. The county council had supported giving up, increasing our budget to at least address the 10 top extreme parcels in the county. We've also looked at, and people are talking about it as well, risk corridors or wildfire corridors. Actually, I'll talk about that a little bit later. And how do we look at parcels versus corridors? I can talk about that a little bit later. We also look at tiered mitigation. What does that mean? It means that, you know, a tier 1 project would include restorative actions, long-term solutions, whether it would be green belts or, you know, some agricultural solution. It includes that in the project. And then you had tier 2, which was something more anecdotal, something that was potentially immediate, high concern. We have a ignition problem somewhere, and we just need to take action right now. That would be a tier 2 kind of project, and it's kind of how we manage and look at different projects and how we prioritize. Back to the corridor base, we've identified 5 corridors in Maui County, 4 of them on the island of Maui and 1 on the island of Molokai. The short story is that based on topography and prevailing weather, fuels, ignition sources, there's places that will likely burn. They always burn. Ask the fire department that reports on it, they burn. And if we allow those corridors to burn without any kind of strategic work in perpetuity to care for it and focus on it correctly, then we're going to lose more communities. And so we're looking at parcels versus corridors, potentially legislation in some way, shape, or form to demand higher regard to these corridors that affect the wildland urban interface and all our residential areas, and badly. So we're looking at and trying to find a way to see that problem correctly and look for actions in every possible way to address it. So Ukumehame, it was our first project. We started in May. I believe it was a 6-month project. It was 5 parcels, 42 acres. 5 parcels, 42 acres. You know, it started off as a vegetation project. There was a pretty big encampment. We didn't really know how big until we actually went in. What we expected to get out of that project and what we actually got out of it was completely different. There was a lot that went into this project. This project, to my knowledge, was $1.4 million for 42 acres. We were faced with cultural site protection, wetland restoration. We were faced with a Hawai'i bat study, endangered species study that had to go into that. Once again, the 20-foot opiuma, that was fuels that were destroying the equipment used to remove them. $100,000 in equipment repairs from those opiuma. The encampments were pretty bad. A lot of the fuels were like 6 to 8 feet underground. So you need equipment to actually dig out some of the encampment areas. And then the additional layer of complexity was electric vehicle batteries, and I'll have Chris talk about it in more detail. But the electric vehicle batteries, 26,000 pounds of electric vehicle batteries, that is the new hazard, emerging hazard for our world, really. And there we have to go through this process of neutralizing, deconstructing, transporting, and disposing of 26,000 pounds. That brought in state DOH and the EPA. We had to get special permits, build a temporary facility, and the project to reduce vegetation next to this residential area in this drought-prone area next to a primary transportation artery turned into much more than that. And it took us 6 months. We're very proud of the work. There's a lot of learning that we had. There's a lot of great partnerships, a lot of capacity that was built and strengthened, and we were able to share that work with the state of Hawaii, and we're very proud of that. So the fuels that was removed from Ukumehame was 176 tons of solid waste, 76 tons of scrap metal, 2.5 tons of recycled metal, and 13 tons of damaged electric vehicle batteries, 123 abandoned vehicles, 1,226 tires, 10 drums of waste oil, 2 boats, heavy equipment, including an excavator, front-end loader, appliances containing freon and other hazardous materials. These are all the things that were removed from Ukumehame. That's one of many parcels that we have to address moving forward. This is what it looks like. This is what the wetlands looks like. This is to the picture to the left corner. You'll see the fuels that were already reduced in that area in Ukumehame is looks great compared to what it started off with. I'm going to turn it over to Chris. He's going to talk more about other projects for our agency.
Hello, my name is Christopher Wagner. I serve as the Hazard Mitigation Specialist for the Maui Emergency Management Agency. Been in the position since March of 2025. Just want to give a quick overview of my background. I started off in public health, getting my master's at Emory University, at the CDC, worked at the specialized United Nations agency, the International Atomic Energy Agency, working with governments to solve government international health projects and problems. Transitioned over into CDC work, and during the COVID pandemic, worked for the Centers for Disease Control Prevention, the CDC, at the San Francisco Quarantine Station. Was a supervisor for public health and medical professionals there, coordinating and managing the nexus between federal agents, state agents, county agents, local fire departments, paramedics, airport and airline personnel and security. It was a real good primer for emergency management. So coming here to Maui and working with the agency, it was a natural fit. Working under Amos, who's really done a tremendous job taking this agency from, I think, himself and 2 others when we started, to a staff up to 26, 27, up to 30, 31 by the end of this year. It's been nothing short of extraordinary. Working under him has been amazing for you to know him. He's an inspirational leader. So I wanted to get to the next big Wildfire Risk Reduction Project. It's one that some of my past involved working with different people from around the world, different cultures, especially at the UN, conducting major meetings with people through translators and understanding how to respect different cultures around the world when they're building and implementing projects. This is our Wildfire Wildfire Risk Reduction Project. This is in central Maui. It's part of our central Maui critical corridor that Davis had been mentioning about earlier. This project was a bit different from Kamehameha. This area had many battles fought at one point. There are still Ni'iwi Kupuna buried there amongst the sand dunes today. So this site was a very sensitive one. And so early on, we recognized that working with our Department of Hawai'i was critical. Some other folks here from Maui County and the Mayor's office also were vital in kind of guiding us through this sensitive project. This one was not so much a Tier 1 comprehensive project like Kamehameha, more so Tier 2. This came out of county leadership as a project that was priority. It was urgent. You can kind of see information about the site: 50 acres, 2 parcels, county-owned parcels. And some of the information about this site was the increase in incidents, fire incidents. In 1 year, I think it was roughly 160% increase in response to fires on the property. This was one of an ignition risk management. This is what we were tasked with. These were multiple large encampments that had moved in there quickly over a 6 to 8 month period. It had been monitored by different county staff and became such an emergency that MEMA was given administrative authority to take on this project. And so we were given a quick budget, a short budget, and very little time to get in there and address this.
Chris, we can see it on this side.
So we very quickly had to, and mind you, this was still when we were finishing up Kamehameha. We were right in the middle of the EV battery mission, so that was essentially a 24/7 job with the EPA DOH on the site. And so getting out there to complete this was not easy, but we were lucky again to have great partners in this. As you can kind of see there, a lot of debris from the encampments there, very spread out amongst the site. Mixed in with all the vegetation, ladder fuels present, continuous, a bit patchy in certain areas, but again mixed. We didn't have the issue at Kamehameha that we did in that the vegetation was mixed with the debris or buried in these sort of ways. So we were able to get good private vendors in there and good partnership with the Department of Public Works to go in there to remove that debris. So again, moving the debris out, we did have abandoned vehicles. We have one gentleman in there who's a great contractor who built a 2-story home. So we had to carefully deconstruct that. Again, this was the whole protocol was approved by a Department of Hawai'i. Again, we worked with them early on, the beginning stages, kind of laying out what we could do and how we could do this safely. We had laid out protocols if we were to find bones or burial sites, what to do in that moment, and train everybody as such. And I can't describe how heavy it was working in there. We got to a point where we had to have a morning and evening blessing before we got on site, after we got off. Chief Amos was a part of that, as well as another colleague who provided that blessing. But these are some of the facets of moving or working in this area when we're trying to heal the land. We're very proud of the work we've done there. Again, Tier 2 work, we're hoping to address this in a more comprehensive way, that whole area, as part of the whole critical corridor. Now I want to introduce our Lao Leading program. This is something that we started back in September of last year. This was born out of kind of the urgency or the want to get back to the community. This is something that we do, or starting internally with just me and the staff, working together, going out and doing physical work, getting out on the land. So far we've been working with Maui United Way on 2 of our days, but this is an opportunity for us to get out on the weekend, work together, build camaraderie, get a little sweat, work out a little bit, get some sun on us. We work in a bit of a cave inside the DOC of Maui, so it's nice to get outside, breathe fresh air, see each other, and spend time with each other, work with the community in order to do something beneficial for the land and hopefully do a little bit of wildfire mitigation work. So here are some of the dates, and we've so far had 3 different dates. We had to take a little bit of a break because of the Honolulu storm, so we're hoping to get back into this as soon as things kind of calm down. But we're very proud of this program. We've had a very good turnout from staff and working with residents, visitors, parents of the schools, or the students who go to these schools. It's quite a rewarding thing. There's nothing like just getting outside and putting in a good day's work. The next program is one that I'm very proud to be a part of. We've been working with the Department of Education. I think this project spawned from the Department of Education and our State Fire Marshal, working with our Maui Fire Department, the Division of Forestry and Wildlife out of DLNR, and HWMO to essentially start helping our schools and assisting our schools in wildfire mitigation planning. Looking at hazardous fuel reduction, structured emission proofing or EMPA proofing, and sort of site-specific evacuation planning. And what we're trying to bring to these schools is essentially, different prioritized or ranked or tiered mitigation measures, different fuel reduction prescriptions, including grazing, structural assessments, integrating all of these in some common sense way that makes sense, both, again, bound to time and money, what we can do within the budget that the DOE was able to get. Also evacuation planning and procurement assistance, which we kind of discovered was a bit of a bottleneck for schools, perhaps getting equipment or executing any sort of mitigation planning. And so we've kind of phased this out a bit. We kind of just jumped into it, prioritizing schools in the WUI proximity and amongst areas that have fuel continuity, working with CAS's and facility staff. We've basically just started off with 3 different schools. We decided, we had a few initial meetings, but decided we're just going to jump into this and start evaluating and assessing and site characterizing some of these schools. So we did 3 site characterizations, 3 schools in one day, all in 3 different areas on the island of Maui, Lahaina Luna, Kalania Koi, and Paia Elementary. Some of the deliverables we're kind of looking at, you can kind of see this is Paia Elementary. This is actually in our sort of North Shore, North Maui critical corridor, that area between Baldwin down to Hollywood Road to Baldwin. You can kind of see a close-up of Paia Elementary, where we're looking at grazing, pulse grazing, where the current buffer is that is put in place by the private landowners surrounding the school, and then maybe what would be an optimized or improved buffer that could protect that school given prevailing winds and fire history. And so we do intend to conduct assessments at the additional 29 schools in Maui County, working with all the different CASs, principals, custodian staff to provide recommendations, help them problem solve, and hopefully facilitate action or planning. And these are some of the upcoming days working with these schools again. We're hoping to make it to Island and Molokai i.e. sometime this or next month, to site assessments. And then lastly, I wanted to bring up, discuss the EV lithium-ion battery response that MEMA has been tasked with, that he was brought up. This started in Ukumehame. We had discovered roughly 13 tons of batteries that had been essentially stacked on top of each other. Where did these batteries come from? That site, it was an illegal chop shop that was operating on the premise. And this individual basically must have been a mechanic or electrician and essentially rigged these batteries to power up homeless encampments. He must have had deals with tow truck operators, and so vehicles were being towed to this property in order for him to power up this encampments. And so that's where we got this. And kind of as Chief Amos mentioned, we brought in DOH, we had hazmat experts, which led us to partnering with EPA in order to address this. And the permit that Amos mentioned was a first of its kind permit across the whole nation. This sort of hazardous waste permit, even during the Lahaina fires and Los Angeles fires of 2025, had never been given out. This was a tremendous coordination and coordinated effort between County of Maui, MEMA, State DOH, and EPA to get this done. And while the Maui method had been created during the Lahaina fires, it was basically still a proof of concept at that time. So this was a great chance for us to learn, for the state to learn how to do this properly, including the soil sampling that you have to do, putting the site together, putting a health and safety plan together, making sure that we had air monitoring in place, which is extremely vital. When these batteries go into thermal runaway, they produce a lot of diversity of different gases, but also heavy particulates that need to be monitored. When you're in close proximity working with these batteries, they can go into runaway in an instant. Well, we were on site and we were working through some of these batteries, deconstructing and getting them ready to put into the brine. A little bit of vegetation nudged up against one terminal wire. And from that, it shorted, and within an instant, the metal casing surrounding this battery evaporated into the air. Luckily, we were able to quickly get it tied up to a rope, sling it onto a telehandler, and get it into the brine. As soon as it hits that brine, I mean, it immediately explodes in that water. Luckily, once you get it in the water, you get it in the brine, the heavy particulate metal stays in the water. You might get some smoking vapors, but at least it's a non-toxic smoking vapor. And it's better than breathing it in. So from that, I've been on an incredible journey, working with EPA, working with DOH, really trying to navigate this space. We've been on multiple responses. Since then, as you can see, we've had to respond to a battery that was illegally dumped on Puehu Road. We were able to render that safe, working with our Department of Environmental Management, our Department of Public Works, Maui Fire Department. We responded to 10 batteries just a few weeks ago that were illegally dumped on a median in central Maui. Again, working with hazmat, working with the Department of Public Works. Those were 10 batteries, 3 were lithium ion, 10 were nickel metal hydride, and being able to render those safe. This is a tremendous issue that really isn't getting enough attention. It's a tremendous ignition risk, and I don't want to sit here and say that I'm demonizing batteries. We all rely on batteries. We need diversification of energy, so I want to really point that out. But we do need to manage this waste stream. These batteries, when they become damaged or defective, become a hazardous waste, a characteristic hazardous waste, so both reactive and ignitable. And so there is hope. The Maui method that we use, that was created from Lahaina fire and kind of harnessed in LA again, was successfully implemented in Ukumehame. We intend to hopefully expand what we're doing in this and help people get into an area where they can solve this themselves. We do have 2 videos on our YouTube. If you go to Maui Emergency Management Agency, we have both a short and long-term video. It goes through each step of the Maui method. It's a great video and the depiction of what can be done, but I want to say the whole goal is risk manage it along the way. You have to tailor what you're going to do based on your conditions. Our conditions were a site next to the ocean, next to a transportation area with a limited budget. We had support, but we knew that we had to get things done in time in order to complete the overarching wildfire mitigation project. So please feel free to reach out to us if you don't know where to get started and how to tackle this, either at the fire department level or at the county level in terms of a short-term emergency plan or a long-term sustainable plan for what to do with this waste. And thank you so much for having us today. Thank you to everyone.
Comments yesterday about imagination. I just feel like we're so fortunate to be in this place where, we might be confronting things we never imagined, like batteries stuck in the woods on the side of the Maui highway, but just imagination has been taken for people to find solutions to these, all of these issues that we're facing. It's really, really inspiring stuff. So with that, that's the end of the session.